are now doing a live. And this live, my friends, this is part 1 of a mini workshop series that I have started with a theme of around building. So building, your confidence in teaching and building your online teaching business in general. And so part 1 of this mini series workshop that I have started with is going to be building your confidence as an online teacher with teacher Melissa.
Hello.
Yes. So glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be
Yes.
back.
And so any of you that are watching this live right now, please leave your questions down below in the comments. We'd be happy to answer that. Or if you just want to say hello, that is also okay as well. And if you don't really want to see our faces, this is also going to be on Apple Podcasts as well. So that way you could listen to it and you have many options in listening to what we have to share today with the mini workshop series. So yeah, let's see. Let's share your questions. Let's show it. Yeah. Here's your questions. So no one's coming in yet, and that's okay.
All right.
Yeah. Let's see. So, Melissa, while we wait for other people to come in, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, Melissa, good to be here. I am a wife, mom of 4, trained teacher, where I taught in the U.S. at a public school for gifted kids, taught Spanish for a year, and then moved to Ecuador, South America, and taught at an international school for 2 years, and then started having a bunch of kids. So I decided to stay home and tutored from our house in person, and then moved to online. And then after our 4th kid, found VIP Kid and was able to kind of transition to teaching online, and kind of made use of my love for the early morning and got up early, taught then, and have kind of shifted again after, now a year ago, when the double reduction policy kind of went into place in China, moving into my own online teaching. And I'm super diversified. I teach on All School, I teach on OutSchool, I teach privately, and I teach with another teacher in Korea. And so kind of a fun little puzzle piece that I've been able to put together, but it keeps things running. And just started coaching, which is really fun too. So another part of this too.
Awesome. Yes. So thank you, Melissa. So Melissa is like the ESL expert in terms of teaching, which I'm sure a lot of you that have come across online teaching are probably leaning more so on the ESL side of things. Or maybe you want to expand and teach your own curriculum. That's also okay as well. So this whole point of what we're going to be talking about today is just going to be like generalized. So it could be both for ESL teachers and also those of you that just want to teach what you're passionate about. So a lot of you that are probably new, like either listening or watching this, and maybe you are afraid to take that next step because you don't know what it's like when you're in front of the screen and you're about ready to teach, and you're like, I see all these teachers like talking about all these classes and doing all these things, but I don't even know where to start, or I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. There's all sorts of different things that go through your mind before you really officially start. Yeah. So I'm hoping that Melissa and I will be able to help ease those tensions and and just help you get started on the right foot, or go, I'm just going to go ahead and do this right now.
Yes.
So build your confidence.
Exactly. And it does take time. It takes a little bit of practice. And we can go into some details later, but it is something that takes a little bit of practice to get better. But you can't get better until you actually start. So
exactly.
An important thing to remember is just get going.
Exactly.
In whatever capacity you feel like you would need to.
Yeah. And I think even if you're a veteran teacher watching this, I was talking with Melissa earlier. I was sharing with her, you remember like the first time that you started, like you taught your very first online class, like what thoughts went through your head and thinking like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? Like, I really don't know what to expect. I watched all the videos. I did this, but I'm still like, what do I, and now most of us that are veteran teachers, a lot of us don't even really think twice anymore about just going online. A lot of us are over here like, yep, okay, let's go. Let's do this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, we got a question. Oh, Stacy said hello.
Hello, Stacy.
Hello, Stacy. Welcome. Of course, Stacy, if you got any questions or anyone that comes into live have questions, please leave those in the comments. We'd be happy to answer those for you. All right. So leading into, first time teachers like, okay, I want to start teaching, ooh, what am I going to do? So I think that's the first question that we can go over is what do you do to help with first time teaching jitters? So we talked a little bit about that where it's like, oh, I'm about to do this. What do we do?
Yeah. No, I would say number one is just have a little checklist that you're going to go through. Is your internet connected? Is everything working? Is your computer plugged in? Do you have your Ethernet cable plugged in? Are you logged in? Is Zoom updated? Or whatever platform you're using, are you updated? Do you have the latest version of it? And then take a deep breath, give yourself a little bit of buffer time. I always like to have, 10 minutes. I like to make sure I'm logged in 10 minutes before in case I need to restart my computer, in case something's not working, my router needs to be restarted, something like that. And then once all that stuff is taken care of, it's kind of an easy thing to just open it up and pretend like you're just talking with a friend. And so, yes, these are clients, these are students, but it is important to remember that they're there because you're going to, be a great fit for them. And so I just try to concentrate on giving this kid what they need, whatever they need at that point, whether it's a little bit of extra support or a little bit of tough love or whatever is needed in that time, kind of meeting the needs and kind of drowning out all the other things in life. And I think that's, maybe you felt this too, Kelsey. I know some of the best classes that I teach, I just completely forget about what's happening the rest of the day. What's going on after, what I have to do after class or whatever. And I go, oh man, that was a great 50 minutes. That was a great 25 minutes. And you're just kind of in your own world, because if you're that focused, you're really giving your best to the kid. You're not looking at your phone. You're not looking at something else on the screen. You're not opening up files. Have everything ready and go the extra mile to give a good class.
See, it's so interesting you say that about the phone thing, because it's like I never think about my phone unless I'm like waiting for like the child to come in and I'm like, hello, are you coming in? Like I never think to do like, and I mean, so you're right. Like you're so focused on the lesson because you're so excited to teach it. You don't think about those things.
Right.
So it's never a problem. Like, unless, like you said, you're like, where are they? Are there any updates? So that would probably be the only time. But aside from that, like, I'd be like, where is my phone? Who cares?
Yeah. And I feel like part of the things that could go wrong in a class, almost all of them are technical. So things that have to do with the platform, things that have to do with the students' technology, their sound, their video, their connection is weak, something like that. And so having an idea of how you would deal with that, whether there's a help button available to you, or for me, a lot of the students I teach in China and Korea, I have another way to talk with the parents, whether that's WeChat or on Slack with my other teacher colleague. And so being able to communicate some other way to get the problems resolved quickly, I think is really important too.
Yes. Oh, and Stacy said on their answer, like she wanted to share like her sentiment, saying, I use my phone to contact support. Like, yes, exactly. Like that would be the only time really for your phone. So we do have a question. And so this is from Emily. She says, I'm currently a college freshman majoring in education. Awesome. Are the opportunities the same for people like me? So I would agree.
As long as you're 18, I feel like that's kind of the only limiting factor, right? Especially for some of the places we teach, Kelsey, with like outside school.
So I think, I think I see where Emily's coming from in that she's going to college for like in-person teaching.
Mhm.
But I think for right now, just to sort of get more experience into like working with families and working with how your teaching style might be, teaching online would be a great opportunity in figuring that out.
That would be a great, number one, a great college job. I'm thinking of like me swiping cards at the gym at 6 a.m. when I was in college. But, that would be a
lifeguard at the school's gym pool, like
that would have been
like
great.
That would be a great college job is to teach online. And I mean,
think of all the quantity of students that we've taught in the few years that we've been teaching online. Think about even just in one semester, you could get hundreds of students in your classroom, in and out of your classroom, and see, what does a learning disability look like? What does low confidence look like? What does over talkativeness look like? What does giftedness look like? What does parent support or lack of parent support look like?
It's like so many. Yeah, it's like a mini practicum, but guess what? You get paid for it.
You get paid for it.
You get paid for it.
What a concept.
So I really don't see why you wouldn't want to do OutSchool or AllSchool, just for those insider opportunities, because, online teaching, is you get those same experiences as you would in person. It's just the difference would be, they're online, they're online classes, and
something else I would say, Kelsey, is that like even something like Cambly, even though it doesn't pay as much, that is so flexible and has such a lower amount of outside time needed to teach on there. For me, Cambly was tough because you're like, I could make more, but at the same time, it's a great time filler if you've got a couple hours here, a couple hours there.
So for those of you that are not really familiar, so Cambly is it's sort of like, it is an online teaching platform, but it's not like VIP Kid or AllSchool or OutSchool, anything like that. It's a platform where you do come on and you basically have like conversation type things with other people from other parts of the world. So, I mean, I definitely have dabbled in Cambly, just curiosity. So you're right. It is a time filler because you can just hop on and do Cambly at any given point. So even if you got off of work from early, or, you got a class that was canceled, let's say you were in college and you had a class that canceled and you had 3 hours to kill and you didn't really have a lot of homework to do, then hop on Cambly and have a conversation with someone in France, or, so it's so cool. Like that's also a very cool opportunity. So
I love that, Emily.
I think the opportunities are the same. So, of course, any of the information that we talk about, it's also going to be in the description box for this video. All of our stuff is shared on there as well. So, including all of our information for for mentoring. We both offer mentoring sessions, so individual or group, whatever your preferences are. So, all that information's down below, by the way. So, yeah. So, that's a great question, Emily. I really like that. Yes, and Teacher Kelly said hi.
Hi, Kelly.
Hey, glad you could come on here. So we're going to move on to the next question. So one of the questions was, how do you create a great teacher bio on your platform of choice? So you're building your platform, or like you got accepted into AllSchool or OutSchool or whichever platform of your choice. And so you're trying to bring in those parents and tell them, yes, I'm a great teacher. I could be a great teacher for your kid. It's almost like your selling point.
Yeah.
So how do we create that?
Yeah, that can be so hard at first because we don't want to feel like we're bragging. But I think it is really important to find what you're really good at. And this can take a little while, which I love the idea of doing something while you're in college and figuring out what you really enjoy teaching. And I would say, think about what parents might be looking for. I'm a mom, I have 4 kids. And when I go and look for classes for my kids who take French online, who take classes on different platforms, I look to see what their experience is. Have they worked with kids for long enough to see that, they might be able to adapt if my kid is feeling shy that day, or they might be able to extend if my kid's like, yeah, I know a lot about this already. So those types of things relating with relating to parents, kind of showing and communicating with them that you can be the teacher that will connect really well with their child by breaking up your bio. And there are really great examples of this. If you find a teacher on one of these platforms and you kind of look around from a parent's view, a parent's perspective, take a look at some different bios. I've seen some that are so great. They incorporate, bullet points instead of just a big paragraph, multiple sets of information. So maybe the first little couple sentences are just saying hello, give something that you're excited about, and then go into bullet points with your experience perhaps, and then go into what your classes can do for their child. I think that would be a really great way to connect. And then if you feel like you can create a video, I think that's really helpful. If you've got a great picture, taking away a background in a picture can really make your face pop, that sort of thing. And so there's just a lot of little things that you can do to give your profile some oomph and help you stand out.
Yes. And thankfully, you do not need fancy equipment to make a beautiful video. If you have an iPhone, you're already off to a great start.
Yeah.
Because your iPhone camera is amazing. And I'm not saying if you don't have an iPhone that you're not going to have amazing phone quality. But it is much easier these days to create a intro video, to even do YouTube videos on your phone.
Yeah.
So, and even to edit it and add music and all sorts of other things. And even you could go on to Canva and do like little extra blurby sides.
I think I created my all school video on my phone using InShot, like the free version.
Yeah.
This person out there, but it's a really easy way to put a bunch of clips together and then boom, done very quickly. So.
Yeah. So see, it's super easy. So there you go. So easy. So Emily's asking a lot of great questions. So I think we can both answer this one. So I have applied to online tutoring companies and some require a teaching certificate. Would you mind telling me which companies do not require a teaching certificate? And we both know All School. All School is the newer online teaching company where you just have to be 18 years old and you have to live in the United States, Canada. I'm sorry.
Yeah. From
United States. Oh, yeah. I got you. I was like, I think so.
Be from the US, Canada, Great Britain, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand.
Yes.
And then, but you don't have to live there. You just have to have a passport from one of those countries.
That's right. I got you. And then also OutSchool. So OutSchool kind of has the same rules for that as well. You do not have to have a teaching certificate for OutSchool either. So if you want to try out both platforms and just see which ones, you were more likely to get in, you can do both. So that's a great question. So we wanted to get that one out of the way. And then also, let's see, how can you get more enrollments in your classroom? Are there specific subjects online teachers should follow to get more enrollments? What do you think?
I would say, for me, Emily, my bread and butter on All School, for example, is my ESL classes. I teach some group classes. I teach a show and tell class. I teach some logic camps. But what ends up happening is those classes end up being more like funnels to one-on-one classes, which is kind of nice. That's better for my bottom line financially. And it's also a nicer, it's a little bit more of a consistent enrollment versus your group classes, which can, skyrocket to you got 8 in a class, or maybe you have 1 child in a class. And so there are different ways that those group classes can go. For me, ESL has been kind of one of the things that I can depend on. And it's a way that you can really get to know a family well and kind of build that rapport, which eventually leads to a little bit more trust, a little bit more of a long-term relationship, just in my experience. But what about you? What would you say in terms of subject?
I definitely feel like, aside from like ESL stuff, I have definitely benefited more so with science lessons, like STEM lessons. And then I think my personal bread and butter would be like Montessori lessons. So I am a trained Montessori teacher. So I like to showcase those types of lessons when available and when families are able to, you know, sign up for the class. But I definitely think the science lessons are going to be much bigger, just because, you know, especially since I teach the younger group, like younger children love to hear about space. They love to hear about dinosaurs and insects, and they love to learn about all those things. So to have those subjects available, you know, and just because 5 other teachers teach about the solar system doesn't mean you shouldn't teach about the solar system either. So, you know, just remember, like you would have something to offer that maybe I wouldn't have something to offer for the solar system. So just keep that in mind.
And I heard this a couple weeks ago and I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. The idea of imagining your ideal student. If you had the luxury of having this type of student in your classes all the time, what would that student be like? For me, I mean, I don't teach the tinies. And so I need to teach, you know, 8 to 12-year-olds. That's kind of my jam. But you love the tinies. And so it's kind of figuring out where you're really excited to teach. And then I think if you offer it, they will come. You know, it's one of those things where if you put it out there and you're really excited about it, usually you'll reap the benefits of it as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, those are some great questions, Emily. Thank you. Yeah, so let's move on to the next question, which is also going to be, how do you efficiently build a course? So what does that look like for online teaching world?
Sure. So let's assume that you're creating your course. You're not using an existing curriculum. You're not using something a platform has given you. If you're creating your own course, there's some things that are going to be really key, like a great title that's very clear, a little bit of a description, a short description that is verb packed. You know, you're giving a really good picture of what is going to be happening in this session. And then maybe a longer description later on that details perhaps some of the outcomes families can expect. Your child will be able to do this after our meeting. And then a little bit of background, perhaps giving some extra resources. I like to bring as much added value as I can, some post-class work, some pre-class stuff that they can preview, that sort of thing. And then if you're creating this in Outschool or All School, a lot of times these can be, you know, web forms that you're filling out and then you send in. And we've all had this happen where, you know, be it an email, a text, or, you know, one of these where it's kind of high stakes, you type it all in and then somehow it disappears. And, you know, all that time is down the drain. So I think to efficiently build a course, I like to do this in a Google Doc. I have all of my courses labeled in my Google Drive. And I can go in and make some edits. I can play with it a little bit, make sure everything looks as I want, and then copy and paste, put it all in there. Once I have my class thumbnail as well, I can just throw that all in there at once and not waste any extra time on, you know, missing that save button or something like that. And then actually thinking about a title, Kelsey, you've probably experienced this too, but I know back in the early days of All School, I kind of left my title a little vague on one of my classes. And I got, you know, a native speaker who was doing fantastic. I got a child who could barely put a couple words together. And then I got a few kids in the middle. And after the class, everyone was very confused as to whether this was the class for them. Rightfully so, because I wasn't clear enough. And so I think figuring out what that looks like, and it may take 1 or 2 versions to get it right, but saying this is a class for non-native speakers, advanced non-native speakers, beginning non-native speakers, things like that, to make sure that you're being very clear about who would enjoy this class the most. And I like to phrase it like that. Students who, fill in the blank, will enjoy this class the most. And that just kind of gives people a better picture of what you're offering.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, especially on All School, because on All School, you are more likely to run into families that are ESL learners. And then you'll also get that mix of learners where they're native. And then if they both join in together, you know, in that moment, then you're just like, oh, okay, how do I make this beneficial for everyone?
Exactly.
So, and that's always fun.
Yeah. And it can be done, but it's probably not the most efficient way to run a class. So best to break that up if you need to.
Yeah. All right. So Andrea says hi.
Hello.
So says Mrs. Michelle from All School here. So glad to be here because I really admire you both. Aw, thank you. And so thank you always for your tips and advice. So in addition to one-time and multi-day courses, I mostly tutor. Yes. Excellent.
I would be interested to hear what your one-time courses are. I'm always thinking, like, you know, when we put ourselves out there and families pick up our courses, a lot of times that one-time course is kind of their entryway to getting to know you.
Yeah.
And then you've got a multi-day where they're like, yeah, camp. And then after that multi-day, maybe they're like, and what else you got? And so then you can offer an ongoing course, but it's that one time. I'm really interested. So Miss Michelle, if you feel like sharing, I would love to hear about your one-time and multi-day.
And then I'm curious about tutoring because I do a little bit of tutoring, like private tutoring, not with all school or even out school, like just out with Zoom. We meet on Zoom, and that's our tutoring session. So, you know, although I do tutoring on all school, like mostly your one-time classes, you know, and your camps are going to be your most popular,
right?
Especially on all school and even out school to an extent. So, you know, you do have, you know, those things, but I'd be curious about one-time classes too. So very cool. All right. So most new online teachers that may be watching this may have the question, like, how does online teaching actually work? So this is getting more so like into the nitty gritty of like classroom management, time fillers or time management. How do you make sure you cover all your content? And then if you're done early, like what can you do with your learners before the time is officially over? All and everything in between. What's your strategy, Melissa?
So if you're creating your own course, let's say, I test it out on my kids. My kids are my guinea pigs, which is nice. If you have some neighbor kids or your friends have kids or you got some nieces and nephews running around, just see if you can give them a free class. We'll see if they like it. But that will give you a little window into like, oh, this wasn't clear. Like the question I'm asking is not getting the answers I want. So how can I change my question? I think sometimes that is a problem that I've run into at least when I'm creating a course. But when you get into a classroom and 5 kids show up, I have a class yesterday with 5 kids in it, ongoing class with 5 kids in it. And thankfully they're really consistent, but I know what to expect now. I know I'm gonna have to mute one child because they take class in their kitchen during dinner time. Someone is cooking, someone else is slurping, and brother and sister are playing around in the background. And so there are these little things that you can come to anticipate, and you gotta use that mute button. It's not rude, just mute them. And if they want to talk, be sure to lay out those expectations at the beginning and say, if you would love to speak, raise your hand. I'll be happy to unmute you and you can share what you want. The more clear we are, remember, these are young children usually, and they're not experts in taking online classes. And so the idea is to make them feel comfortable, give them an idea of what to expect, and use that to our advantage that we have a mute button, a mute function, and being able to create a good environment for everyone else. We don't want everyone else to be annoyed by the background noise when we can take that distraction away.
And I will say, I don't mean to interrupt, but I will say the mute button for all school is so much easier than out school, because I feel like, and I'm not ripping on out school at all. It's just they use Zoom, and sometimes to get those advanced features to where like you can mute and unmute like smaller children on the out school end is so much harder than it is on all school.
Takes longer too. Yeah.
It's so I'm just so thankful like all school has like, yes, you have control of when you mute and unmute, and it's like, thank you.
ClassPad rocks. If anybody is on the fence between Zoom or ClassPad and you're teaching on all school, give ClassPad a try. I feel like, yes, there's a practice room. There's no reason to feel nervous as you go in. There's a bunch of stuff you can do beforehand. And you do that because a lot of people don't know. When you open ClassPad, when you open the app and your picture is up on the right-hand corner because you're logged in, click your picture and it says open practice room. Boom, there it is. And you can hop in there and practice. But I would say that would be another, online teaching, practice is being fluid in drawing on the screen, being fluid in drawing a rectangle around the text that you want a student to read. That sort of stuff that we used to do in our brick and mortar classrooms of like, all right, you 3 are going to read this, you 3 are going to read this, and giving very specific instructions, that needs to be done in just a different way online. And so we can use those drawing on screen functions to give good, clear instructions. Timers, gosh, use the timer. We've got that in ClassPad now. If you don't have ClassPad, use your phone, hold up your phone every once in a while. I use ManyCam, and so I can easily toggle over with the click of 2 buttons, and I've got a timer for 1 minute, timer for 2 minutes. And so there's a lot of ways that you can keep yourself on track. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to think about this, create your idea, and then show us. We'll show at the end of 3 minutes. Keep your eye on the clock, please. And keeping that kind of flow and making sure nothing is a surprise. They know at the end of 3 minutes, they're expected to have something. And so I feel like clear expectations, clear communication is really important. And then, being positive. This isn't meant to be a horrendous experience for anyone, for us or the kids. And so liberally giving stars, make sure that every kid ends up with all the stars at the end of every class, or whatever reward system you're using for the age that you're teaching, I think is really important, whether that's a joke or a drawing or a game or stars.
Yeah, awesome. So Andrea shared answers. So she's tried many different ways and routes. This is sort of going back to what type of one-time online classes she's offered. So one-time math and writing and kindness classes. So I'm assuming like grace and courtesy or manners, which is important for sure. And then she also said she didn't plan on doing ongoing tutoring. It just sort of organically happened from my understanding of this comment. So parents asked for ongoing tutoring, and
and I think being prepared to handle those. At the beginning, I was like, what? I'm here to teach group classes. That kind of caught me off guard, I think. But I was thankfully prepared. I use a curriculum called ESL Pals. Again, I try not to pay for anything I don't need, but this was an easy yes for me because it's a curriculum that's very affordable and it's applicable for pretty much all the learners that I've encountered that want one-on-one tutoring on All School. And so that's now just an easy yes, 25 minutes, when do you want? So it's an easy thing to kind of step into. But if you don't have something that you're okay leaning on, like a curriculum or a plan that you've already got in place, that may be a little bit more of a difficult yes to make.
Yeah. So Andrea also said something about at the end, like, I have a problem with classroom management and in aspect of keeping up with time. So I always go over. So I think we could talk a little bit about that time management of what happens when you do go over. Sometimes it is better to go over rather than under. So that way you're not scrambling to going, okay, do I show a video to a kid? Do we play a game? You still want those things, in your bag of tricks in case that does happen, but eventually, like you also don't want to go over on your time for what that time limit is. You said that you're going to teach this class, and you also don't want to eat up the time for those families,
right?
Either that may have something to do afterwards, or maybe the kid has to go to bed, whatever the reason is.
Yeah.
So
as a parent, thank you for mentioning that, because sometimes we'll have somewhere to go. I'm like, okay, your class ends at 3:45. We're leaving at 4.
Yeah. So I think for the teacher perspective, especially since I teach littles and they'll ask questions, like the kids will ask questions, if you get my drift, questions.
Yes.
And so a lot of times it's like, I'll only do like 2 or 3, and I'm like, okay, let's wait until the very end, to ask questions, because I may be able to answer your questions in class.
Yeah.
So I may have to do something like that just to keep everything moving.
Yeah.
And so unless they're just like, I have to go potty, or I have to do this, and it's like, okay, that's fine. Thanks for letting me know. Just go. So
in terms of going over, though, I think if that happens often, we all go over. It's fine. It's better go over than under. Don't go under. Don't ever go under. If parents have paid for that time, you should be there for that time. But if you are going over constantly and by like 3 or 4 minutes, I would say, how much are you talking and how much are the kids talking? With younger learners, we often think of like a 50-50 speaking ratio. With more advanced kids, maybe like a 70-30, and kind of checking yourself. I do this constantly where I'm like, how much did I just talk in that class? That seemed like a lot. I was rambling. And so kind of checking yourself and making sure that we're keeping track of time. And if it helps you, put a timer up, for the class to see, not just the timer that shows up in Zoom or ClassPod, but a timer on the screen. And it's, it's going to be there. It's going to be ticking, but it'll get your attention until you train yourself and then take it off. But that can be useful.
Yeah. All right. So Andrea also shared that she's a little nervous about ClassPod. I know we talked briefly about ClassPod and what that looks like. She's like, I've heard several cons about ClassPod, which makes me nervous. And it's why I've been wanting to stick with Zoom. So All School says they want teachers to transfer to CP eventually, which I feel is, kind of sort of true. Like, I do get insider tips, but not all of them. So I'm just like I see the idea because it's unfamiliar, and there definitely has been some glitches. Like I definitely have encountered glitches, with ClassPod. Like nothing's perfect. Like even Zoom's not perfect, but more teachers would go to Zoom because it's,
so common.
It's so common. It's like, I've done Zoom for 3 years now since this panini happened. I call it a Pandora. So
Pandora, that's very.
So you get the gist. So I would say, like Melissa said, there is a practice room for ClassPod, and if you are able to create a class where you're able to use ClassPod, I definitely would recommend just playing around with ClassPod one day. It could be like an hour before your class, or just a day when you're not teaching and you just have time to just kind of fool around with things a little bit. Just play around with it, because I mean it's relatively similar to Zoom, except you do have a few more features with it. I'm not necessarily sure what the cons are. Like I said, there have been glitches, but overall, my experiences with ClassPod have been relatively positive.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, Melissa.
I would say always. Sorry about the dog. I live in the city. Can't take care of the neighbor's dog, but I would say always make sure you're updated. Oh my gosh. Tell me if that's really distracting.
I don't know. I'm over. My dog just decided to come in too. So
all right.
So I'm over here like, does he hear that? I'm not really sure. But
all right. Well, I would say always make sure that you're updated. Make sure that you're using the latest version. Mm-hmm. I always open it right when I turn my computer on in the morning. I tend to teach in early morning. I don't want to open ClassPod 5 minutes before class. Just in case there is an update and it's going to do it automatically. Oh no, I don't want to be late for class because it's updating. So part of this is on us as teachers to make sure that we are very much ready before class begins. And then, gosh, I think you're right, Kelsey. I think the benefits outweigh the cons, because I have had a couple glitchy moments, but support has always been very good about that. And then, if you are using ClassPod, there are so many ways to really make it an authentic experience. I like to share about this a lot on Instagram. So if anybody's very curious about how to use ClassPod, I put screenshots up there. I blur out the kids' faces and everything, but I show you how I drag kids' video feeds and I have them turn and talk to each other. That's very odd for them in their living room turning, but that's something that they do. They're drawing on the screen. They're taking turns drawing on the screen. So there's just so many ways that you can bring kids deeper into the lesson when they're a part of it instead of just observing all of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's also another cool feature about ClassPod. So for sure.
And a chat is coming soon. I know. A chat box is coming soon.
Yes.
Which is great.
Yes. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
See, like even for us that use ClassPod, like there are some things that we notice that we're like, I really wish it would have this. And that's one thing that makes me stay with All School is they really do listen to us. And if we have suggestions, they really do put it into consideration, if not bring forth, that proposed plan. And it's just like, well, at least you thought about it, and not just blatantly ignore us and go, okay, yeah, whatever. We'll think about it, So that's what I love about All School.
Absolutely. Our voices are always heard and very quickly acted upon, I feel like. So
yes.
That's another good thing.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Now, we do have a couple of good organic questions from the chat, but I also wanted to go ahead and bring up about communicating with parents. How do you communicate with parents effectively? Because I feel like if you're new to online teaching or even just teaching in general, that sometimes, you come across all sorts of parents. So how do we approach that professionally, effectively, and making sure that we get our points across without being like abrasive or rude,
Sure.
So
Yeah, no, I would say at least a lot of the families that I've come across are very deferential. And they know that we are probably pretty good at what we do. And so they want to hear our perspective on things. I always ask and give them the opportunity to share as much as possible about their child, about their goals for their child's interests, and then their preferences for what pre-class and post-class work would look like. If they want homework, some do, and others say, nope, my child has enough schoolwork. We don't need any more, and that's fine. I always communicate after class. I just copy and paste the same feedback about 3 different places. So at least for my one-on-one students on All School, I'll give learner feedback, I'll leave an announcement, and then I'll send a message under the learner tab that you can send a message to the parent. I take lots of screenshots in our classes, which I think is kind of fun. I know as a parent, my own children in their French classes, their teacher takes a lot of screenshots, and I go, oh my gosh, look, he was saying something. Oh, she was talking, she was drawing something. And so it's very cool to say, hey, here's what we did. Here's a look. You can actually see that your child was engaged and we were doing something.
I never thought about that. But of course, I teach littles and the parents are right there. So they know exactly what's happening. So so it would be redundant for me to do screenshots. But I love that concept for like older children.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Especially when they're like, how was class? They're like, good. No, that's not going to fly. You got to tell me more. And so it really helps when the teacher gives a little bit of a bite as to, in class today, we did X. I teach with an organization on OutSchool, and I brought it to All School actually, called Brain Train. And Brain Train has a wonderful practice where after each class, we've created these blurbs about what each class was about, the 21st century skills that we taught, and then we have personalized feedback. So for each child, we add in something that they did awesome. Hey, they did super well during this puzzle today. I loved their awesome, out of the box answer for this. And so that's just showing it's added value. Again, bringing that added value to your classes. This is not just a stock class. I'm here to, meet your child's needs and let you know how it went today. So that sort of thing can kind of give parents something to go off of, and then something that we'll be working on in the future. And again, that is incentive, merited incentive, but incentive to keep going with your classes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's communicating with parents, just generally like overall experiences, which is just making sure they know what's going on, which is awesome. Yeah. So I think the next question that kind of goes along with this would be, what happens if we come across a difficult parent, maybe someone who was unsatisfied with the class for whatever reason, or they want a refund or whatever that reason may be. A lot of new teachers that may not be familiar with like parent contact may not be sure how to, like how to communicate that again without being abrasive or rude about it. So what's your strategy if a parent comes across and they're not happy with what you had to offer?
Yeah. For one, I take that super personally at first, and then I step back and I go, what could I have done wrong? What could have been interpreted differently than I intended it to be? And I can usually come away with something. So I find that kernel of truth, whatever it may be, and try to connect with them. Say, I see your point, and I absolutely did not intend it. Again, this is just good customer service. What we do is a business, and on one side of things, we are great teachers, and then we do need to be good business people, and that is something that we are all working on, I think, in a lot of ways. So how do we do that? I think we communicate clearly. If it's something that's understandable, maybe I don't agree with it, but if it's understandable, I'll refund. It's not worth it to me to continue a long drawn out fight in the comments or feedback or whatever. Right. Refund, move on. They will find someone that they like better. And this is not something that I need to worry about. However, if there is a clear abuse, maybe 10 minutes into class, you get a message, this happened before, so-and-so won't be coming to class today. Yeah, class started 10 minutes ago. He's not here. I understand. Tell the support agents. If you're on a platform, this is one of the benefits. This is why you pay a platform commission. Use the support feature. Please communicate to the family that class has already begun, and therefore they needed to tell me 12 hours, 24 hours that they weren't going to be coming. I would be happily refund in the future if that's the case. Please remind the family of this. Something like that. But that does require you having a cancellation policy. So teachers, step up, go the extra mile, put that out there, perhaps at the bottom of your bio, your description, a little asterisk, cancellation policy, what is considered an excused cancellation, what is not. Go beyond what you think might be necessary because it will help you in the future. It's just one of those passive things that we can do to head off these confrontations. And if you do have a parent who is just, haggling with you or wondering about prices and discounts and stuff, gracefully bow out of those. Those are not the people that are very much interested in your classes. They're looking for a bargain, and maybe they can find a bargain somewhere else. But if you know your worth and you're setting up your classes thoughtfully, that's not what
that is super important. You have to watch out for those parents that are like, I'm looking for a free class or a heavily discounted class. And I mean, I admire the teachers that are like, yes, I can absolutely offer you a free class. Like, I'm not ripping on them at all. It's just, look, this is my livelihood. This is what I do to help pay the bills. I simply just cannot afford to give out free classes all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, teachers, know your worth. For sure. Know your worth. and do those discounts, sparingly, carefully, and don't do it all the time. So we got some good questions. So thank you, Melissa, for those questions. I definitely have encountered a couple of difficult parents before. And so especially when you're an online teacher, not only are you a teacher, you are a business, person. So, and we're going to talk a little more about that tomorrow with Alejandra. Yeah. So we're going to try to end our time together with some of these follow-up questions that came up in the chat. So super exciting. So Emily asked, do you think all school will eventually bring a planned curriculum, or do you think they will stay with the teachers coming up with the lesson and curriculum?
I would go with the latter. I don't think, just based on what we've been through so far, I mean, Kelsey and I were founding teachers, and so the idea was there in the beginning. It was not acted upon due to some copyright issues is what they told us. So I think hopefully the idea of organizations and people bringing larger scale, perhaps better backed curriculum, but on their own accord. At least I've found that bringing an organization to all school, I think that's something that could be the way of the future in terms of if you're not willing to make a class for yourself, not willing to create curriculum, I think that could be an option, but I don't think so. Do you think?
I really don't know because, like I said, I'm sort of like kind of behind the scenes, like with the all school team, but not really at the same time. So yeah, it's the whole copyrighted thing, and whether, I guess, if teachers feel comfortable, like even offering their own lessons that they have written for other teachers to teach, whether teachers are comfortable providing that or not. That could be a gray area for a lot of teachers of like, well, I would like to teach the curriculum rather than another teacher, So I know some teachers are very protective of their lessons, and that's okay. I get that. So I think, if there is a way to do it, maybe so. There might need to be some more research behind it. But Emily, I don't know if you heard earlier, Melissa also works with, or she uses the lessons with ESL Pals. So
and complete transparency, I'm an ambassador for them. I don't get paid by them. I use their curriculum out of my own pocket. But if people do end up purchasing, they're welcome to choose my name from a drop down, and I do get a small commission. But I talk about them because I think it's a really good value. And I think it takes a lot off of our plate that doesn't need to be there in the first place. So that's why I share about it, but I think it is a good option. There are lots out there. So that's one of them.
Yeah, so I think for Emily, because Emily shared earlier, she's a college student, so she probably does not have a lot of time to write these lessons on her own while she's doing homework and studying. So I think having a source like ESL Pals could be really beneficial if she would like to do some online teaching on the side. So yeah, that's a great question. And then kind of going along with the curriculum, how long do you ladies take to come up and create a curriculum for those types of platforms? So all school, out school. So, so very briefly, how long would you say it takes for you to write your own lessons?
I think you can be very strategic with this. I've done both, but one of my big courses came out of what I do with my own kids, and it's show and tell public speaking. Literally, I create a sentence. Please bring, for example, today, please bring your favorite snack and something you can use to clean. That's all. I have a couple slides that show speaking skills that we go over before each class, but after that, it's kids talking and me directing and moving the lesson along. They question each other. That's it. And so it can be as simple as that, or it could be a heavily guided, slide-based, like my logic camps, where I'm putting hours into creating these puzzles and riddles and codes and stuff like that. And so you can go either way. I would side with the former because it's it has much more longevity. You can make that a very long-running thing. My logic camps are only 4 weeks each, 3 and 4 weeks. And that's only going to work for a handful of students. So it could be 12 hours worth of work, or it could be 12 minutes, just inputting everything into the course. So
it really does depend on what type of lessons you're offering for your classes. If you are doing like ESL Pals or another platform, like you just have your lessons, you may have to gather materials and you can be ready in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Or if you are.
What's nice about a curriculum that's downloadable, ESL Pals is downloadable. Others are web-based, so you're depending on someone else's server. If you've got everything downloaded and you've got it organized into folders and you upload it on ClassPod, perhaps to your library, it's all in there. And so you're not dealing with 20 tabs open on your computer. You might if you want. But it's just kind of taking out the guesswork. What you need to have up.
But I feel like once you have written the lesson, thankfully, it's not like you're writing lesson plans every week.
Yeah.
Like generally speaking, once you write the lesson plans for like one-time classes or your camps, like that is the lesson plan that you have, because every time you teach that class, you get a whole brand new set of of children coming in. You don't have to worry about like making lesson plans every week.
Sure.
So that's the wonderful benefit of online teaching, is you only create the lessons one time and you have it, and then you may tweak it a little bit, as you realize, each child's needs and what works better, because the lesson I teach about the solar system now is definitely very, very different than the very first lesson I taught about the solar system.
Yeah.
For sure. Which then kind of leads to another question. From teacher Kelly. She said the hardest part as a new teacher or a new class is figuring out how long it should be, which is a great question.
Yeah.
Because I know for like one of my first classes on OutSchool, like 2 years ago, I taught a Montessori lesson for 3 to 6 year olds for 55 minutes.
Wow.
Because that was the recommended time on OutSchool. I was like, okay, I guess this is what I should do.
Yeah.
And no. So if you know the age group that you're going to teach, this is where, you could figure out, what times work best. So if you're doing the younger crew, so 3 to 6 year old, I would recommend 25 minutes for a class, because their attention spans are so short, and they really don't need to be sitting there in an online class that long either. So I'd say 25 minutes, maybe 30 for like the little ones. And then as you get older, add like 5 or 10 more minutes to that age, so I would say don't go over an hour for sure. Please do not do that. Do not make the same mistake I did on that. Do not.
Yeah,
So,
I think I agree. 25 minutes for younger, and then as you're playing with this, don't just guess. I mean, make it walk through your steps, and put in
true.
parentheses
Yes.
in the notes of your Canva presentation or your PowerPoint. 3 minutes intro, waiting for all the students to join the class. 5 minutes on the icebreaker warm up. 10 minutes on this main activity. 5 minutes here, and so add it up. See what it comes to. See what you can move around if it needs to be moved around or extended or cut. And then if it doesn't work the first time, then adjust. And if it does work, then run with it. But there's a lot that you can do ahead of time to make sure that you're heading off any issues.
That is also true. Yeah. You're right. So I always think littles because I teach littles, and I'm over here like 25 minutes for sure.
So 45 or 50 for older kids is fantastic, and in a group. And
for older children, yes, true. So if you know your age group and you know your niche and you know how long it'll take for each class, that's usually how you can gauge how long the classes are. So I'd say for any age, do not do an hour, for sure. All right, so let's answer one final question because I don't want to keep anyone longer than they need to. So last question: what equipment do you use to teach online, and what do you recommend? So
I am super low maintenance. If anybody saw my Instagram today, I posted a reel of what my teaching setup. It's literally a plastic tower that used to be boxes. I have a sideways cardboard box for my mouse stand, and I teach on top of a clear plastic container filled with schoolwork. So it's nothing fancy. It's my computer. That's my mic and my camera. One day I would love to have other things, but I don't think I need it right now. I don't have a ring light. I don't have anything extra. I do have over-the-ear headphones, but they broke right here. Yeah. So they have a big piece of masking tape around it. So it's just one of those things. Headphones, I think, are kind of a continual investment, but that's one thing to save your ears and kind of drown out any ambient noise when you're teaching. But that would be mine. What do you think?
I think so. I've kind of stopped the headphone things ever since I started writing my own curriculum. I've kind of weaned out of the headset thing, just in case there was any imminent danger outside. I need to be aware of that too. So instead of my husband going, "Get out of the house now," so it's like, "Oh no, why?" So I want to be aware of those things. So, also if I have a screaming child or two screaming children, that hurts on your headphones.
Sure.
I stop that personally, but it's a personal choice if you want to keep headphones or not. But yes, when you're starting out, you don't need you don't need any fancy equipment. You just need your laptop, and you can use the mic from your computer and your camera from your computer too. And the only thing I would personally invest in would be a ring light. I have talked about that in a YouTube video before because I just feel like a lot of these companies are like, your lighting is off, or, unless you have a really good lamp that can really make sure that you cast your face well and you're not casting any shadows, and for sure, other than that, that would be the only investment.
And corded internet, Ethernet, I think is key.
Ethernet, yes, for sure. Yeah. Well, I think this is a good stopping point here. We had a lot of great questions, so thank you for all that came in. And just so everyone knows, this live will be shortly available on YouTube if you want to watch back and play back, so that way you can physically see the questions, but also that this video is going to be on Apple Podcasts, and it's also going to be on Anchor, which Anchor is the app that I use to record all my podcasts on. You can listen to it on Anchor or on podcasts for this particular broadcast and also my previous live teacher talk shows as well. But this will be the end of our part 1 building series. So thank you again, Melissa.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. And thanks for coming, everybody.
Yes.
Good to have all these questions.
All right. Yeah. And I hope to see you all tomorrow when we meet with Alejandra for building your online teaching business. All right. And make sure to check out our Instagrams. All right. I'll quickly show that up. That is Teaching Online with Kelsey and Melissa is Teaching, respectively. for those Instagrams. So thanks for tuning in, y'all.
Bye.